has just suffered a devastating defeat, yet another one, following the Vietnam War, following Afghanistan, following Iraq, and now Iran. And it's because he has a transactional view of the world, reinforced, as comrades have said, by what happened in Venezuela. In Venezuela, he found someone to do a deal with, Delcy Rodriguez, because she likes, nice Gucci shoes and all this kind of nonsense, decapitated the regime, got it under control, thought he could do the same with Iran. He was persuaded by Netanyahu and intelligence, if you can call it this, from Mossad, that if they destroyed the top layer of the leadership, there'd be regime change. The CIA said stuff and nonsense, but he ignored them and went ahead. It was a free choice. It wasn't that he's under Netanyahu's control, it's just Netanyahu persuaded him that he could do this. And it's been a catastrophe because he's run into a regime and a people who do not want to be under the thumb of either Israel or the United States. And as you rightly said, Shanaz, them turning out on the bridges was an act of extraordinary bravery because Israel had bombed them. I mean, they're doing it in Beirut. So it's an extraordinary act of bravery for them to do that. And a regime which, for all of its manifest faults, and in fact we don't support it, certainly as a regime, nonetheless has a kind of anti-imperialist ideology which he just didn't get, which has made them so resolute in resisting him despite the devastation that's been happening. And it was a masterstroke to close the Strait of Hormuz, because he's in a dilemma now. If he's really going to crush the regime, he has to carry out that destructive wave he was threatening, which will bring down the world economy. That's his problem. Now, he might do it. I mean, he's that unstable. But that's the price he's going to have to pay if he's going to try and overcome the Iranian regime. It's all because of that fundamental mistake. Just on the question of dollar decline, people often speculate about this, and there are moves because China is a much bigger trading partner now. The dollar has declined as in terms of the amount that's being used in exchange and in terms of reserves held by banks, but it's a long process. Sterling was the international currency, and it was a 40-year decline before it kind of disappeared and was replaced by the dollar. But I read, for what it's worth, the Financial Times and Bloomberg, because this is the clever rich people talking to themselves, so they need the truth. And Bloomberg is now talking about the continuing decline of the dollar, courtesy of TRUMPS, the instability that Trump brings with it. But we'll see how that develops. On the national debt in the United States, it is heading towards 150%. And with higher interest rates, they already have to pay more than the defence budget. I mean, the defence budget is actually going to expand. And it's like in a race between how much they're paying on the debt and how much they're spending on defence. But they're paying more than $1 trillion a year, and it's going to rise. And they can get into a doom loop, as they call it, whereby they're having to borrow to pay off the interest on the debt. And so the debt gets ever larger. And at some point, people aren't going to want to buy the debt. And no one knows when that's going to happen. People keep on calling it. But it's a dangerous decline to get in. As I say, it's not that... I mean, Israel has a degree of independence. Obviously, if you have a look at the way things have developed, Israel wants to carry on the war against Iran. They don't care if there's a failed state. As long as it's smashed. Whereas, there are different forces in the United States, slightly, at any rate. And I don't think Trump is particularly in favour of them doing Lebanon. It just matters less to him. And so that's the thing because it's not just Trump that suffered a defeat. Netanyahu has suffered a serious defeat. If you look at what the opposition is saying in Israel, they're saying this is a disaster. What's happened? This ceasefire is a disaster. We were not consulted. So that shows you how independent the US is of Israeli influence when it needs to be. We were not consulted, and you've left us more insecure than before. Not more secure, which is what you chose, which is why he actually did that. 100 targets in 10 minutes, killing 250 people in Lebanon, to say, no, I'm still the man to rely on here. China is the big winner out of this, without any doubt whatsoever. I mean, they've stayed their hand, they've been working behind the scenes, but the whole show for Xi is I'm a force of stability and rationality, as opposed to Trump. So, come to me. I mean, in fact, before the Iran war, there was a trend within West Asia towards China because they're buying the oil, apart from anything else. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, in the background, why Trump is quite interested to get more control over that oil, as he did over Venezuela, to have that pinch point. Because the Chinese, he went for the Chinese over the deficit with them, and they said, well, in that case, we're not going to sell you the rare earths you need for all your defence and all the rest, and your high tech. So he had to back off. So he wants something to strangle them with, but he's got weaker as a result of all of this China has got stronger, no doubt whatsoever. And we're in a very dangerous arms race now. And I think this relates to the question of, NATO and all the rest of it. I mean, I thought Polanski was interesting saying he wanted the US bases out, great, and then went on the question of NATO. I don't know why he did that, other than that the Greens don't have the right policy on it in their conference. Maybe he's working to change it. Trump is going to pull out of NATO before Polanski does on this rate. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's definitely been undermined. Barry's absolutely right about that, but that hasn't brought peace. It's brought more militarism. The Germans have abandoned their control over their budget deficit, which was at 60%, in order to spend much more on weapons. And you can't trust these people. I mean, just think, it wasn't the United States, it was Britain that went to war against Argentina over the Malvinas, right, and killed a lot of Argentinian conscripts as a consequence. That wasn't economic, by the way. That was the war of Thatcher's face, so she'd get re-elected. But killing a lot of Argentinians was a price she was prepared to pay. It was the French who bombed Libya and turned Libya into a failed state, independently of the United States. The United States didn't mind. Actually, they did mind a bit about the Malvinas, because they were in an alliance with the far-right dictatorship in Argentina, but in the end they wanted Thatcher more than they wanted them. But the French went after Libya. They have a horrible militaristic history. The French Empire, the British Empire, honestly, the flags that we see are the butcher's apron. So we can't trust any of these people. And it is, if anything, it's getting worse because things are breaking up and they're so unstable. And there is this terrible arms race. And it can break out at any time, in any place. By the way, if someone were to hang Trump and Netanyahu, I don't think we'd shed any tears about it. But obviously they're not, so we just have we have to hope for a movement that will overthrow them. Now, just on a few other points. On the question of the role of oil, absolutely, oil dependency is in a way a disaster. I mean, the world economy depends on it, and it will come crashing down if it doesn't have it. But it's a disaster because the more oil that's burned, the worse the climate crisis, and the quicker the climate crisis is going to be upon us. So in a way, it shows the extent to which the world's leaders, the people who call the shots, have been so lax in not moving more quickly on the question of replacing oil with sustainable energy. And now they've been caught out, of course, in this war. But that's absolutely right. And you're right, Maggie, I think, about saying that we don't just want to fetishise economic growth. You can have economic growth if you build a load more weapons, because that counts as, or any old nonsense. That's economic growth. The problem is, and it's probably a rhetorical one more than anything else, if you don't have growth, the way it is under capitalism is you get unemployment and you get worse and you get the basis, as you say, of the right wing, and we have to think quite differently about it. And I did like what Polanski said about this, which is that he wants to talk about the quality of life, not about economic growth. Let's get away from those kind of capitalist ideas. Now, AI could be fantastic. Don't we all want to work a lot less and have much more time for leisure? We want to leap over, and get into that much nicer place. And AI could do this for us. The trouble is that when AI under capitalism, we know what is going to happen. It's going to be used for militarism. It already is. They're using Claude to target in Iran. It's going to be used to replace labour who will just be thrown onto the scrap heap. Maybe a few workers will, remain. It's going to be a disaster under capitalism. But this could be used to liberate us. But it has to be. It can only do that under a very different system of control. So I ought to shut up now, almost. But I'm almost there. So there are reasons to be pessimistic, reasons to be optimistic. I'm very happy indeed that Trump has suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of the Iranians. Very happy. And Netanyahu has as well. And we should celebrate that, absolutely. I'm also extremely happy that we had 500,000 people on the streets of London just, 10 days ago, against the racists, against the far right, unions, Greens, everybody coming together, absolutely fantastic. And that's the way forward. It's mobilising from below, and we're going to have to mobilise from below like never before, because what's happening to the world economy will be the economics roots which can fuel more right-wing politics, That's just a fact of life, sadly. But we can contest them and we can beat them. The shine has come off Farage because of his association with Trump and because people are actually looking a bit more closely at the horrible things he's actually promising to do. We can beat the likes of Tommy Robinson too, but we're also going to see attacks on workers, and people need to get organised to fight back in the workplace, both against racism but against the attacks that are coming. So there's a big job to do. We're hoping to have a little bit of a holiday at times, in between all of that, but we need to keep going, and we as a party need to get much bigger.
Thank you.